Welcome to the Men's Collective podcast. In this space, we keep the conversations real, inspiring, and challenging you to become the man you are destined to be. Your family needs you to be better. Your friends need you to be better. We need you to be better. We are your hosts, the Average Joes. Gentlemen, welcome to the Men's Collective podcast, where we dive into the real, raw issues every man faces. I've said it before and I'll continue to say it. This here isn't just a podcast, it is a movement. It is a call to action for men determined to rise above being mediocre and unlock their fullest potential. We are your hosts, the Average Joes. Today's conversation is all about defying the odds, pushing through when everything seems stacked against you, a topic we have called Against All Odds. Majority of the time, success isn't about being the strongest, smartest, or well-equipped, but about persevering when all signs point to failure. To help us tackle this, I've once again brought together a powerhouse panel of men and very good friends of myself, Chrisso and Jamie. Welcome, lads.
Wayno.
Hey, boys.
These men are men who've been there, faced their own trials and emerged on the other side. But this isn't just about their stories. It's about pushing you, our listener, to confront your own challenges and rewrite your story, no matter how tough things seem right now. Also joining us today on the panel is a man who knows a thing or two about beating the odds. This guest is one of Australia's leading and most known property investing experts and businessmen. Born with ADD, raised in Western Sydney, failed every grade from kindy to year 12, working 20 hours a day with 2 full-time jobs, scraping by and saving every penny he could to go out and have a real go at life. Buying his first property at age 18 in Mount Druitt, of all places. All the while, the experts sat, laughed and criticised every move, to now building one of Australia's largest and respected property empires, amassing himself a property portfolio of over 200 properties, all by the age of 30. Now, just one of his many companies has helped over 6,000 first-time property investors, over $5 billion worth of property purchase transactions, over 15,000 property purchases for his clients, turning 2,000 plus of those people into instant millionaires. He's faced his share of adversity, doubt and setbacks, yet he's pushed through to achieve extraordinary success. We all face obstacles, but how do we keep moving forward when you're backed into a corner? What's the mindset that separates those who rise and those who crumble? As always, by the end of this episode, our goal is to not only inspire you, our listeners, but also equip you with the real strategies you can apply in your own life. Whether you're facing financial struggles, personal crisis, or career setbacks, today's conversation will give you the tools to face adversity head on, come out stronger. Our guest today is none other than Mr. Nathan Birch himself. Nathan, you've had a remarkable journey that truly was and is against all odds. We'd love to kick it off with your story. Welcome to Average Joe's, mate. The floor is yours.
Thanks for having me today, guys. I appreciate that.
Really good.
I guess, looking back throughout the career of my investing journey, it's been 20 years now. And I used to have the face full of pimples, now face full of grey hair when I don't shave.
I noticed that when you got out of the car, but I wasn't going to.
Oh, thanks. It was funny. Three years ago, I had a mate and I was like showing him I was spray painting a house and all the paint just got in my hair. Hey? And I went and had a shower, showered it all out. And I was at the gym the other day and I said, I can't wash this stuff out anymore. It's permanently there. It's white.
You scrub and you just scrub and it just stays there forever.
That's it. I guess you've said a lot about my story there. I grew up in Western Sydney. I was 13 years old. My family were just blue-collar workers and worked really hard. My dad had a heart attack, died instantly at the age of 62. I was 16 years old. And I thought I didn't want to have to go and work 40 years of my life doing a job because I hated school. I failed every grade. The teachers were saying this guy's an idiot, he's a class clown, whatever. And I just didn't want to have to go through 40 years of sacrificing my life to potentially die and not enjoy it. And from that perspective, I just thought, what do rich people have? What can I use as my resources? And I thought if I could get 10 properties by the age of 30, it would be tremendous. There was no podcast, there was no internet back in 1998. Yeah. I just had a goal of getting to 10 properties by the age of 30. And that gave me 12 years from 18 from the first contract I could sign. And I worked hard, worked 2 jobs, saved up my first deposit by the age of 18. I bought a property in Hebersham in Western Sydney. Hebo.
Wow, that was it.
Hebo, yeah.
Hebo.
I paid $248K for that thing. And I thought this would be cool. And I just thought if I could save a deposit, work 2 jobs, all that. I didn't know anything about the financial system, didn't know how money worked. I kind of feel like what's that show, The Wedding Singer, with Adam Sandler, and he goes for the job interview at the bank, and he says, "I want to be rich." And they go, "What experience do you have with a bank?" And he goes, "Well, I have a jar on top of the fridge, and rich people have money, and I want to be rich." Right? I kind of felt like that, and I had to build strategies around how could I get and exit the matrix to get to where I wanted to be. And the word matrix nowadays is thrown around, so taboo nowadays. But I always thought, how can I get out of this job? I don't want to be stuck and trapped into that. And every decision that I made in life had to be in line with my goals, and I treated my life like a business, and processes, systems, and procedures. I have a lot of fun along the way, but there's been a lot of sacrifice, and there's adversity that comes at all different levels, right? And every time that I've had to push through a new level, there's always been some new gatekeeper there that have had to new levels bring new devils, and you have to try and get through the gatekeeper and move on to the next level. And there's always been a great level of adversity. You mentioned beforehand about being disciplined and being committed. I wouldn't say that I'm the smartest guy in the room, but I'd be the guy that's the most committed in the room to be able to just keep pushing through with the punches that come our way. And it just becomes nature at the end of the day. So yeah.
It does seem like when I've mentioned the things before about your ADD, the failures you had in school, and now you've mentioned before about the teachers even verbally saying it.
Yeah.
That, in a nutshell, that from the outside looking in would literally write somebody like yourself off. It would be your typical grow up to be a brickies labourer or work in a warehouse somewhere.
Yeah, go work at the local wreckers.
Yeah, it honestly does. Yeah. But you've come a hell of a long way, mate. Like I've followed your journey for some time now. I remember coming and doing a course with you, and I think his name was Daniel. Did you ever? Yeah. And that would be probably close now, 11-ish
12
years ago.
old.
12 would it be?
Maybe
wow.
12,
Okay, and I remember going back there, mate. So I've followed your journey for some time, and you've been an inspiration right from the start. But it is interesting how the world can write off people like that, because we, especially men, I mean, we've conjured up a certain stigma that we need to be a certain thing. And when you go through, like, I guess, schooling life, and when what should be, verbal uplifts become, pushing us back down, it does seem like it could be an instant write-off. Yeah. So when you go, say, like, starting from scratch, what does it mean for someone, I guess, with your own journey, but what does it mean to start from nothing?
Yeah. I think I see a lot of people starting from nothing when they come to me, right? They're coming with like 20 grand, 50 grand. They think it's impossible to do something. And I think sometimes it's better to come with nothing than it is to come with baggage too, yeah?
Wow.
Yeah. When people come in, they've got these preconceived ideas. Like if you look at me today, I'm a lot more cautious. I'm very much like alert to everything. Like I've lost my innocence over the years because like life belts you with certain levels of adversity. So starting from nowhere, like there's this meme thing that goes through. I'll see it on Instagram reels, right? And you've got these two siblings, right? You've got let's call them two brothers, and one's an alcoholic and one never touches alcohol, right? And you ask the alcoholic, why you're an alcoholic? And he goes, well, my dad was an alcoholic, right? You ask the other one, why don't you touch alcohol? My dad was an alcoholic, right?
Yeah, right.
And it's the perspective, and it's like, how do you look at the world around you? How do you see it? I didn't want to be trapped in a job, right? I couldn't think of anything worse than, doing that. But it didn't take me away from the fact of hard work, because life is full of hard work. So I had to hustle and make those choices, make the sacrifices, make the commitments, and being dedicated to it. Yeah, I think planning comes into that too.
Oh, I totally agree with you there. You actually just said something that's actually made me really think totally different to, I guess, what being against all odd means. You just said, people come to you with nothing, and in some cases, and it's making me think now, if anything, it seems as if most of the case, coming with nothing is a better place to be in, because you're not bringing along the baggage, you're not bringing along a preconceived idea, you're coming like a blank canvas going, I'm actually am starting from scratch. So I guess when you look at, being born into a situation where it does seem as if everything is against you, if anything, that could be the best place to start.
Yeah, because you got your hunger.
Never thought of that.
You got your hunger, right? You got to push forward.
Yeah,
and then it's like if you're, I don't know, climbing a mountain, and then you're just like going, oh, I'm going to get up here, got to get. You look down, and it's like, whoa, shit. Like,
yeah.
yeah. But
I actually never thought of it. It's actually stopped me in my tracks a bit, because I think when you think of having all the odds stacked against you, that's when you write yourself off. Where if anything, that's the perfect place to start from.
Well, it's just the spark for the motivation that you need, right? And I mean, what was your motivation? Was it the teachers that are saying you're never going to amount to anything, or this guy's a dead shit? Like, what was that? What
I've had told.
Was that motivated you?
I've been told lately that I'm the most committed, lazy bastard that they've ever been seen. Right? So, I was so lazy, I didn't want to have to be trapped for 40 years, right? But I was so determined to have freedom and choices and ability to do what I want.
You were that lazy, you didn't want to work.
Yeah, I was that lazy.
You wanted to work. You wanted to work hard, but you didn't want to work.
Exactly, right? And I think as I get older, it's more the options, the choices, and the freedoms that are important. So that's what I wanted. It wasn't, certain things. It was like so if I go back to the original goal, I wanted to get 10 properties by the age of 30, and I'd never seen anyone do it. It wasn't like I had a mentor. There was no internet around. There was no Facebook, nothing. And I just thought if I could get 10 properties, I could replace an average income of 50 grand a year back then, which would now be like 100 grand today. And that was enough for me to be able to have a nice life. And I just thought if any decision gets my way, cut it out. Like I just need to make the right steps to get towards that goal.
But what put that thought into your mind? Was it, did you read a book, or did you just knew that property was the way forward for you? Like,
rich people had it.
Yeah, right.
I wanted it. Yeah. If I look through who else has properties, property seemed like a good vehicle. It doubles, goes up.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back, I think that most people, like a lot of people, lose money on property in real terms, right? So it's like having processes and systems and procedures. And to get to 10, I thought it was impossible at the start. Like I'd say I'd do it, but I was just like, fuck, I don't know how I'm going to do it, right? In my head. But I'm like, I'll do whatever I have to do to get there. And if I started all over again, I could get there in a quarter of the time to where I am today. But it was like breaking through those barriers at the time. And like you were talking before, Wayne, about, 200 properties. I think it's about 250 now. I don't even count them. In Corona, I went and bought over 30 motels. I didn't even know what I was doing with that, right? There's a whole new level of vulnerability there.
Mm.
And it just becomes a game. And I look at people today that come to me with like $1 million and they don't do anything, right? They're too scared, or they've got cash, and it's like they don't know the risks they don't know the risks and the guns that are pointing around them, right? But then I see someone that's got 30 grand, they're like, I'll do whatever it takes, right? And I see people that got 30 grand get to 10 properties in 2 years. And it's like, because they just go, they've got more of a burning desire to push forward and escape whatever position they're in. So, yeah.
It's your mindset that I'm finding like really like interesting, because
sitting here thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's just, do you think you were born with that drive, or was it something that you sort of built up inside yourself, or did you have any help or anyone sort of that you used to bounce those ideas from? Like,
it's a very good question, actually, because I've thought about this beforehand. Like, I wasn't born with it. I think I've created the person that I am today, just through environmental factors, things that I haven't wanted. I always look at things I don't want in life and like, okay, how do I have to steer myself most to the other side? But I'd definitely say, I was actually just chatting to one of my staff who I went to school with, and I said, if I could go back in the past, I'd find the 18-year version of myself and beat him up, right? Because I'd be like, if I could take my brain today and put it back 20 years ago, it'd be a whole different world, right? But I'd never go back and change even one thing, even a bad thing that's happened. I say it as a joke, but the reality of it is that all the bad things that happen have shaped who I am today. And any adversity that's come my way has built me to be resilient, sleep with one eye open and view the world in certain ways. So I've had to.
Yeah, you definitely have, like from what you're hearing your story, you've definitely looked at the world in another direction or in another way that most people don't.
Yeah.
I know when I was 18, coming out of school, my mindset was like, well, I have to work and work hard and save up for things. And, I wasn't thinking I need 10 properties. Like that was not even in my hindsight. Like, but you had that mindset to go, I want 10 properties and this is how I'm going to go about it. Like that takes looking at things a lot differently than 95% of the population.
And even saying that as well, like when I bought my first property, my mum's like 80 now, right? My parents were like 50 when they had me, and nearly 50, they're mid-40s. My mum's in her 80s now. And when I bought my first property, she was like a proud mum. She's like, oh, my son, he bought a property, he's 18, just bought his first property, right? Telling everyone. And the second property I bought, she was like really proud. She's like, he bought two and he's 18, he's 19, right? He's killing it. Then I bought a third one, right? And it's like, oh, stop doing that, right? Fourth one, don't do that, right? You're going to get hurt, right? Fifth, sixth, and seventh, it was like Britney Spears shaving her head off, right? It's like, we need to have an intervention. He's gone crazy, right? And
He's
then-
lost the plot.
Yeah.
Someone step in.
And then it's like, after that, it's like, you're just going to go bankrupt. But, you know, all these things. And it's like, my mum supported me to a point where it was outside of her comfort zone. And she didn't realize. And she's like, oh, it's too scary, too risky. And people around me, whether it be colleagues, whether it be family, it's like, you know, people, I hear random things. I say I'm doing something with my family. They're like, oh, monopoly money, here we go. I'm like, hang on a second. Hey, well, if we look at the origins of money, it's just made up anyway. But, you know, but the mindset of like how we all came from the same place, we all came from the same upbringing, but it's like the challenges, and it's like for me to have to go, no, this ain't how it's going to happen, and like push through that and not consider my mum's opinion, my friend's opinion, my family's opinion, girlfriends along the years' opinions. It's had to, yeah.
That's really interesting when you think of it, how you buy your first property, everyone's proud, pat you on the back, well done. Second one, well, super proud. So it seems as if it's climbing up. But then when you get to 5, 6, 7, people start to not so much throw shade at it, but people, it's like they take on, it's like you haven't developed a fear, but they've taken on the fear of yours, and then they start throwing caution, going, oh, you shouldn't. And it's as if they started off by encouraging you and pushing you when you step out, you take that leap of faith. Everyone's there to pat you on the back. Then it goes up, but then all of a sudden, everyone backs away and starts giving you advice that they themselves have no idea what it's about. So I wonder if that goes right across the board in other things that we do as men. When you're looking at taking that leap of faith, taking that risk, taking that step, everyone starts off by giving you the accolades and the pats on the back and going, well done. But then is it them not liking that you go further than them? Or is it them like a genuine fear or concern? Or do you think it's, because we've said this before on the panel too, how Australia does seem to have what's called the tall poppy syndrome. People love seeing you succeed, but if you succeed more than them, then they start throwing shade at you, like, oh, you're going to fail. You should pull back. It's as if people don't like to see you go further and further. So when you started to get to 5, 6, 7 and then going further and further, do you think it was people, I'm not saying your mum's in the category, but do you think people were throwing shade because you were doing better than them?
No, I actually think it came from a genuine fear that, as you were saying that, I was trying to think, was it or wasn't it, right? And it came from a protection of a position of love and care and like, oh, he's going to hurt himself and all that sort of stuff. And it's at that point where I have to make the decision, and everything I do is very calculated and numbered and planned. And when I'm making a deal, it's like I'm playing a game of chess there to get to the other side. And if I know my position, I know what I'm doing, I'll just make that move. But if I don't, I'll rather sit back and just be reserved. But sometimes in my life, like people look at me and they're like, that's a hasty decision, right? And it's like, no, I sat there for 2 years thinking that decision. I just chose to make that move today and I never spoke about it, right? And that's the thing. And I think over the years, like, because I used to do a lot of like the TV, the media and stuff like that, which I don't do anymore. And I started seeing it like when you'd put something out there, like the media would write a story or it'd be on the news or something, and then you'd see like comments, oh, this guy's had it handed to him or this or that. And the next thing, there's a lot of crap out there. And it's like, the parents must have given him all the money. Okay, cool. Well, how did his parents get rich? Right?
Yeah.
And
So
it's
someone
like,
had to,
yeah. So, but I think it's an excuse too for like, there's two camps of people. People genuinely love you, they're doing it out of fear. But if they don't know you and they're doing it, it could come out of jealousy. Yeah. And it's, there's a lot of that's out there. Yeah.
One thing you mentioned before, which I thought was awesome, was that you look at your life like a business, and you wanted to get out of the job, which, I love the saying, a job is just over broke, the acronym. But then you went into, you do a lot of systems and it's very strategic.
Yeah.
Do you develop that through trial and error, or do you actively go out and try to educate yourself? What's your process there?
Trial and error.
Yep.
Yeah, just find something that I'm not happy with, and how can I make it better? And it's
Yep.
just constant, like every process, even down to my email inboxes, systems in my business. Like nowadays, I've got like 400 staff. It's like, wow, I didn't sign up for half this stuff, right? But there's headaches come with that, but very blessed as well. So lots of, whenever there's like, most people get stuck and they just accept that, hey, this is the end of the road here. It's like the computer game and you get stuck and it's like, oh, time's up, throw it. It's like, no, well, what do we need to do? Just, overcome that. And a lot of the time it's just, those policies and systems and procedures that can help you amplify your position. Just like I look at Macca's and Macca's systems. It's like I saw an article. It was like a BRW front cover story from like 2011 the other day, and the heading was "Mate, it's as easy as a cheeseburger," right? And I talked back then about building a property portfolio like a business, and all my properties over the years when I do renos and stuff, I make sure I have the same tiles, I have the same carpet, I have the same paint, because then all I need to do is have the one box of tiles in my shed, right? I don't have to have 50 different ones and go, oh, what's missing here? So if you can put processes and systems in place, and I think you have issues in the world where people get divorced and people, marriages and like monetary issues in the household. And it's like, well, did you set that up and have the parameters around it? Or just like, oh, we'll just hope for the best, right? And there's like so much hope for the best in the world. And it's like, well, you can see the point where someone fell off the rails no matter what because of, oh, we'll just hope for the best. And it's easier to, just getting back to the point where we're talking, I thought about it a minute ago and just popped back in my head. Like it's easier for someone to have an excuse for why they can't do something rather than step up to the plate and say, yeah, I screwed up or this didn't happen. So sometimes I say things and people might be thinking it sounds like a fantasy world or it's fake or whatever. It's like, no, it's just, you can't compute it because you haven't seen it or you haven't made it. And there's people driving out in different cars and people living in skyscrapers. And I was just in Surfers Paradise the other day. I just came from there up to the studio, and there's buildings that are like 60 stories, right? Who built them? I don't know, right? Someone did. Who owns them? I don't know. Someone does. Putting the sign on top of the building's worth $1 billion. Who knows, right? So there's lots for us to learn and evolve and grow. Like no matter what it is, whether it's sport, whether it's our health, whether it's what we put in our body, foods. Yeah, lots of things for us to keep improving on.
Yeah, it makes me think of a saying where people will see a Ferrari drive past and people will go, "Oh, I wonder what he did."
Drug dealer.
Yeah, to get that. Or some people will actually go, "I wonder what I need to do to be able to get that."
Yeah.
So I think mindset is really, really good. But you mentioned before people don't put those parameters in place and get themselves into a bad situation. What would you say to those people who want to get back on the right track?
Very good question. I always think of life as a journey. And when I don't give financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, but I think I do a better job than financial advisors give. They're all just salespeople, really. No offense to any financial advisors watching the show.
Just tell it as it is, mate.
They're trying to sell you insurances and shares and stuff like that, right? I always say to people when I'm doing like strategy session, people come to me and they say, hey, how do I get 10 properties? How do I get 20 properties? What do I need to do? And I always ask the question, okay, well, what if we fast forward 5 years, what is it that you want out of your life? Like, where do you want to be? People say, I want to own property. Well, why? Okay, I want to retire. Okay, cool. How much do you want to retire with? I want 100 grand a year. Okay, cool. That's what we need to work out. So once you work out the end goal, then you can reverse engineer to where you're at. So the famous thing I always ask people is how does someone get to Perth? And it could be fun. You might know what I'm saying here with this one. How would someone get to Perth?
Jump on a plane.
How would someone get to Perth?
Yeah, jump on a plane was a bit.
Drive a car.
Good questions, right? You need to know where Perth is because people living in Perth, they don't need a plane, right? They don't.
Oh,
right? There's people living in New Zealand that can't drive; they'll be drowned, right? So once you work out where Perth is, then you work out where you are, right? If we want to get on a plane, we ain't going to get a plane land here at the podcast studio today, right? We're going to have to catch a bus, an Uber, to get to the train station, to get to the airport, to get to the, the destination needs different steps along the way, and it needs a different version of you. So how you turn up on that day, mentally, physically, all that requires different things. So if someone's not on track, we'll take a step back, and the best move is sometimes just making a move and going, okay, well, this ain't working, right? Like my life, whatever it is, isn't cool. And it's happened to me in all different facets of my life, like whether it be health or whether it be whatever. Touch wood, it's always been good health, but like I've looked at some of my own podcasts. I'm like, who's this fat bastard here, right? I'm like,
You've lost a stack of weight, eh?
maybe 20 kilos.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. And it just happens over the years. I'm too busy. I work 20-hour days still. Like people say to me, oh, I thought you were retired. I'm like, yeah, I just want to take over the world. I want to do all these things. And it's like, yeah, so I prioritize that more now. And it's like, you know, for me, it was like 2 years ago. It was the last time I had a drink. Yeah. It was random going off on tendency. Sorry. If that's
No, mate.
That's what we do.
So the last time I had a drink was 2 years ago, and I got pretty smashed. I had like 30, 40 drinks in like 2 hours, and like I could handle my drinks, right? I could handle my drinks. I was just like, oh, you have a drink, right? And I woke up and I woke up drunk, yeah. And I looked in the mirror and I was like, who's this miserable looking prick, right, in the mirror? And I was like a cockroach that's been sprayed with like Mortine or something. I was like laying on the lounge for the whole day. And I seen this this dude, and he was some tech guy. He might have been like Instagram founder or something. It's called the Bucket List Family, right? And it's his family. This guy is worth $50 million, and he's on like a boat and he's traveling the world. And I was watching, and I was like, this guy's so happy, right? And it's like, why is he happy? And here I'm like pissed drunk, trying to get rid of my, hangover. And I was like, hang on a second, like I need to take better care of myself and take better care of, my body and the things I put in my body and all that. And I've never touched drugs. Like people sometimes think because I'm like ADD or that, like, what's Nathan on, right? He's like jumping around all the time. But you're looking at it like I never drank much. I just drink a lot. If I drank, I binge drank. And then I was like, hang on a second, I cut that. Then it's like, I'm not going to have any seed oils, right? So I look at every ingredient on every food. And when you go to the shop and you think of the health food section, right? Health food section, what, half an aisle, right? And then you look at the half aisle and it's like, well, if that's the health food section, what's everything else that's being pumped into our body, right? And these things are way out of my knowledge base here. But I'm like, there's all the seed oils, there's all the preservatives, all these things, and it's like these things are out to kill us, in my view. And digging deeper into the health stuff, I'm like, I'm only going to put stuff in my body if it's going to help me. Right? And like I have different protocols and systems and procedures, and I'm like, I'll live to 100. Is this in line with the person that's going to live with 100? No. Okay, I need to, do this and this and this. So that's sort of why I went and started losing weight and working out and going to the gym every day. And I'll punish myself if I don't hit my goal, and I don't know, I won't sleep on the floor, but I'll go to the gym at midnight most days because my shit, I ran out of time. I've got to go to the gym right now, and I'm committed.
Jeez.
Yeah. So,
It's just that discipline, isn't it? Like everything's just black and white. It seems like you say you're going to do something, and then you go do it.
Yeah.
That's like, and everything else is just overcomplicated. Like everyone else does that. So.
It's funny, before you're saying you keep, like, going back to the box of tiles, right? Hence how you do all the houses the same, so that way you can just get the same box of tiles in your garage. It's funny hearing you say that, because I know people have said it to you in the past, and we mentioned it at the start too, but you could quite easily hang up the boots on everything you do now and coast through the rest of your life and have 100 lives, and you still easily afford to do what you do. But in following your social medias, I remember going back, I think it was when you bought one of your hotels or something, but there was one not too long ago, but a little bit ago. You were stripping out a bathroom and you're doing something with the bath, and I'm thinking, why the hell? Like, you don't need to be doing this, but you're still doing it. But when I say you're still doing it, I mean, like, you personally are still doing it. You as Nathan are the one going there stripping out a bathroom, and you did like an Instagram post or something on Facebook, like, doing something with this bath. I'm thinking, mate, I don't even do that anymore. But it's like,
I don't do it to 2024, but sometimes I have to. Like, if I have to push it along, and it keeps you grounded.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, it's like keeps you sharp. It's like, yeah, but I think nowadays I'm not playing for me. I'm not playing even for my kids. I'm playing for my grandkids and great grandkids, and it's like, it's just a game. What else am I going to do with my time? Like, I've got things at work. It's like, what am I going to do? Swap assets for cash? Cash isn't worth anything. They just keep printing cash. That's why everything's getting inflated away in 2024, and it'll get worse and worse and worse. So
on that, then I do want to dive into some of these questions about that, because I do know You were big into crypto for a while. I don't know if you're
Yeah.
still doing much with crypto or anything like that. But in the chats that I have had with you, going back on those phone calls,
Yeah.
you aren't just a property expert, or, use the word expert or not, but you're not just a property guru. You seem to know so much about finance as well. Because I remember talking to you, you're saying, oh, look, the interest rate's going to do this, but it's going to hit 50 basis points and this. And I'm going, mate, I thought you were just a property dude. You're throwing things at me where I'm going, where the hell do you get all this information from? So in you just saying then, like, cash is worth nothing. For our listeners that are hearing that for the first time, that's going to go straight over their heads. Like, what do you mean cash is everything? Like, we hear things like cash is king, or we hear...
Cash or trash.
Yeah, tell us what you mean by that. Like, take us deeper. And look, again, we have taken what you've said true. You're not a financial advisor, but at the end of the day, what you've done works, and you are definitely living it to the day. So we'd love to hear it. You tell our audience. What do you mean by that? Cash is trash. Tell us.
Well, everyone thinks that their house has gone up in value and like it's so great, and I've bought a property and it's doubled and stuff like that. It's like, no, you swapped out fiat money, which is your dollars, whatever currency you're in, around the world. You let's call it dollars. You swapped your dollars for an asset, yeah. And if we look at just in the last 3 years, 4 years since Corona, everyone the world should have dropped into the biggest depression we've ever seen, right? People weren't allowed to work. People weren't allowed to leave the house. Things had gone bad. Everything should have collapsed, but it didn't. Everything's gone up and doubled and much more expensive than it ever used to be. But you look at why it is, and they'll say, oh, it's because of, some conflict. I won't say specific words because we want to get our videos, hidden and lower indexed in there without saying the shadows or any bands or anything like that. So I'll keep it clear with words that I use, right?
You might need to teach us about that later too.
If there's conflict around the world, if there's health issues,
Yeah.
if there's certain things that occur, why? Like they're blaming on all these things, but ultimately, the central banks, not the governments, because the governments are just in a seat or a position there. The central banks around the world printed trillions, like tens of trillions worth of debt, which has not been seen yet. There's no way of stopping it. Trillions. If you look at Australia's debt, Australia used to have debt in the recession we had to have in 1992. We had $96 billion worth of debt. If we look at the debt today, it's over $1 trillion worth of debt. The interest rate at 10 basis points was like 10% or 1% is what it was at. The government's debt was $1 billion a year of interest. Yeah, the cash rate has gone up to 435 basis points, so 4.35%. The annual interest bill on the debt the government's got now is $43 billion a year. That's bigger than Medicare. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. If you think about, and there's this website everyone can have a look at. It's called usdebtclock.org. Yeah, and this is a US debt, and that's just clocked over $36 trillion. Right? And if we go back to 2001, remember what happened?
That's a staggering amount.
Yeah. If you think back just 20 years ago, 23 years ago, some demolition happened, and there was a conflict after that, right? We're all going there. We know where it is, right? There was like a situation of conflict that had happened in the Middle East of the world, and we were like, the US was like debt of like $1 trillion, $2 trillion, $3 trillion, something like that, right? And over 2 decades, it's gone up like tenfold from there. And then we had the GFC that occurred, and then Obama came out, and then we're going to fix the world, right? And then suddenly it went up to like 8 trillion. And then the orange guy came out and he goes, I'm going to fix everything, right? And he goes, I'm going to get rid of all this debt, and it was at $20 trillion, right? And then he left office, and it went to $30 trillion, right? And then you just look at it now, and if you just think about it, just take all the digits away and take it, and just pretend it's a $10 credit card, right? The $10 credit card, if you can't pay it off, you have to go to the bank and say, I'm either going to go bankrupt or I'm going to need a cash advance to pay for it. And the bank goes, well, we're going to bankrupt you. That'd be the honest thing to do. But no, we're going to give you a $20 credit card, right? And it's like, oh, cool, I can refinance that credit card, pay out all the debt, and I've got a bit of money left over for interest on it, right? If you look at the US debt clock, the rate that it's going up, they're just printing these dollars. They used to have to print it. They used to water down the currency and print more currency. I call it currency because money is not what they call it. But they'd have to commit that fraud on such a different scale. Now they just put digits. They go, oh, we'll just make an IOU, we'll create a bond, we'll sell it off, and someone will buy it. And, you know, this expansion of currency is what's going to crumble the financial system. And I look at it and I think it's great, because the worst thing someone could have, I used the word cash is trash beforehand. People think cash is king. It's because people worship cash. It's like, that's controlling people. It's really controlling people. Like, when you think about it, it's like people are worshipping it. Cash is king. Like, even just that saying, you know, cash is king. It's like, no, it's not, right? I don't want a ruler over me. Why am I ruling that? So then the words in our English language, right? I could go way off topic.
That's a good way of thinking of it, actually.
Right? People are, we go to a system where you're like, oh, you need to go get a job, you need to do this, you need to fit in. It's like, I don't want a job. I want to go to the beach, right? I want to do this. It's like, what do I do?
It's sounding real good. Yeah.
How can I play in the system, right? If you go back to the Matrix, Neo knew that the system was fake. He knew he was in a computer game, right? But he went and learned how that computer game worked, so he could take control over that and then be able to win at that computer game. And I look at money, and the reason why I talk about weird and wacky things is because I have debt, right? And I might say, like, I've got like, I don't know, 14 billion, I wish I had 14 billion in debt, 14 million in debt, and I want to get $1 billion in debt, right? And soon I plan to. That's my goal, is to get, you want, right?
Using figures that just would be, as blowing our minds, I'm sure the listeners' minds would be blown.
But the thing is, the world's run on, the money is debt. It's created. It's not owned. It didn't go, oh, I'm going to go to the safe and get it. It never existed. They print it out. They create IOUs. So the more, if we had a glass here, I don't have a glass, but this is a mug. And just imagine, for those that are viewing it on the video, if we have the glass and we pour a little bit of cordial in, there's nothing in it. You pour a little bit of cordial, and you just pour a bit of water, and then we just keep pouring water. You're going to water down the cordial to eventually you're never going to taste cordial in the water, right? That's the dilution of our currency, and that's why we have inflation, because it's the opposite of, you know, it's what they're doing. They're devaluing the currency by printing so much. So if someone has a $500,000 mortgage, a $500,000 property, and it goes to $1 million, that's cool. Everyone goes, my property doubled. But no, your paddle pop sticks and your Big Mac meal and everything else has doubled in value. All that's happened is the cash lost its value. It wasn't that the asset went up in value. Yeah. So if you can have debt, the debt becomes worthless with inflation. And the only way that this scam of a Ponzi scheme system goes along is that they just keep printing money, so the debt becomes easy to pay off for those that are the more powerful. They're the ones that create the rules. They're like, oh, we'll just water it down, and then pass it down through the system. So I see that game, I'm like, let's play. But I didn't have that mindset at the start. I was like, I just want to buy a property, and I think the property was a cool thing. But it's like, when I take a real big look back, and it's like, the only reason why that happened, it wasn't because my 3-bedroom fibro house in Mount Druitt got any better than what it was. It's still a 3-bedroom fibro house in a rough suburb with graffiti all over them. It's just that the money was watered down so much, and the people can afford to get the debt to take on that thing. So it's the risk is being shuffled off to the everyday person, and that's the scam of the system, what we live in.
So you just seem to have this ability to view the world in this blanket and understand how it all operates. I mean, that's a pretty rare thing to have. I mean, not a lot of people are even, most people that are in business and are in finance that can really understand how that all operates and see it from that perspective like you do, and like you've explained it, and you explained it really well. I actually understood it.
Thanks.
And I was just like, wow, why don't I think like this?
I'm actually like searching realestate.com now where everyone's talking.
Yeah.
Inflation doesn't stop. And if you look at the level, if you go through all the charts on every single money printing around the world, like whether you're in the RBA, the RBNZ, the US Fed, you'll see that the level of money, your currency creation, is just going at a hockey stick level, and that's in line with inflation. And they go, oh, it's because of China, it's because of Russia, it's because of whatever. It's like, no. Can someone put their hand up and say you've been robbed, because they're manipulating the system that we're all living in? And I said I used to be on the TV all the time. I started saying it, and suddenly they don't like me out there, right? So it's like, I don't care, I just say it.
But a lot of people are scared of going into debt. Like, to some people, the people that don't understand how it works, they're scared. They think debt is bad, but debt's good, right?
It's used by all the rich people, isn't it?
Using other people's money. That's what they call it.
Other
It's
people-
better that why use your own? Use someone else's.
Yeah.
One thing I want to ask you about your opinion on. So right now, the Queensland government, or it might even be a national thing, they just gave out $1,000 to everyone for power. Cost of living, rubbish. Yeah. Now my mindset is that that's my kid's tax that's going to have to pay that back. Like, why don't they put that money into infrastructure? Like, how do you feel about that?
Oh, it's like having, you know, I'll be careful with the words I use on here once again, right?
Don't be careful, mate. Don't be careful. We can edit whatever you want.
It's like having an addict that you're giving more candy to, yeah? And the system, it's like what caused this problem is just printing money and handing it out, right? That's how it all went up, yeah? And it's been getting bigger and bigger. And it's like, I always joke to people, if I get myself in trouble, I get myself in trouble sometimes. Like, I buy 30 motels or I do something crazy, and it's like, oh shit, I'm a bit short here. I need to, there's no second job's going to fix this up, right? Driving Uber ain't going to fix my life up, right? But then it's like, it gets to a point where like there's no way of saving the system. So looking at these vouchers that are being given out, that's just like helping people. It's just printing more money. It's creating that debt is being handed, like they're just giving it away. It's like, we'll just create a Ponzi scheme over here and hand it out over there. I've got a really interesting segue. This is like, it's a men's show, so it's like something I think could be valuable for men to look at the world.
You take it, mate. Go for it.
So I see people nowadays and they come to me for advice. I'm like, you're born in 2006, what? It's like, so I look at people I'm dealing with, they're like 20 years old. I'm like, 2004, I was driving my car then, right? So people may not, listening may not know this, right? But like, if we go back to the early 90s, right? I was a kid at this time. I was like 7, 8 years old in the recession. We had to have book eating, whatever.
Music was great.
Yeah.
Fashion was great.
It hadn't been like sabotage to the level it is. That's a different story, right? But I look at the problem that we had back in 1990, right? And people say, oh, it was a political party here. It wasn't. It was a global thing, right? Everything that happened, the same thing that happened in Australia happened in every country around the world. And how did we get out of it, right? We had the biggest boom and biggest prosperity. What did they do? Well, they broke down the family unit. They made things where the wife had to go to work. They stimulated the economy by creating a childcare subsidy, right? So they created a financial instrument by breaking up the family, divide and conquer. They can send the kids off in groups, 50 kids to a childcare centre, whatever. 50 mums can go out there to work. So now they've got 2 tax slaves per household, not just 1 tax slave per household. And everyone's like, oh, I'm so good. And they put out programs that go, oh, women's rights, all this sort of stuff. But they're weakening and breaking down that family unit as well, right? They're taking people away from their traditional law.
Absolutely agree.
Right?
100%.
So they created a Ponzi scheme, which was the childcare rebate. So then the woman could go to work, and then the household, you got 2 people working and all that. And then what they did is they go, oh, we've got to fix up a bit more of the Ponzi scheme. So we created super funds, which are the 401ks for you US listeners, or you got your super funds here in Australia. And then they take like 8% of your income, and then they force you to put into this super fund, right? And the super fund, what do they do? That's liquidity going into the financial markets to reinflate the Ponzi scheme of all these stock markets and all these different types of derivatives and whatnot, and funding for the elites and powerful people. And then we have issues over the years, and every time there's an issue, suddenly super contributions have to go up. Now it's up to 11.5%,
Yeah, I know.
right? Now just think about it, right? If the stock market's going to crash and they do, we're going to do super contributions and increase it from 10% to 11%, right? Suddenly you've got like 1% of every person's income going back into these financial systems to reinflate them. They're just all a Ponzi scheme. So this printing of this money, or currency as they call it, and they go, here's $1,000, here's $1,000. They're like bloody lollipops, giving them, you get one, you get one. But it's nothing. It means nothing. It means nothing. It means nothing. It's like they just printed, we'll push buttons and, suddenly, yeah. So that occurrence of that currency being created and thrown to bills will now hurt the inflation even more. And I thought about this when they increased interest rates a few years ago. And when they started increasing interest rates, I started saying to people, it's okay, it's going to hurt inflation even greater, right? So if you're an owner of a property and the interest rate has gone up, well, you're going to try and recoup some of that cost somehow. So you're going to push the rent up. If you don't push the rent up, then you might go, well, I'm just going to sell the property. You sell the property, and suddenly there's less properties for people to rent. It means the price is going to go up, right? So if you look at all the levers that are being pulled, it's like, I look at if it's conflict around the world, I look if it's a health issue around the world, whatever they, putting out there. I'm like, I knew when my time on TV and they were talking about all these things and I went to give good content, they didn't like it, right? I was talking truth. And I was like, this isn't in line with the advertisers. This is not in line with certain things. I'm like, if I'm spitting out about the way money works and stuff and they don't want to talk about it, what could be happening about any other topics that I don't have exposure to? Right? I'm not here to profess about politics or anything like that. And it just makes you question. You just start seeing a deeper level of this world that we're in and the deeper level of what we've been brought into. We obey without question. You're born, you go to a 12-year indoctrination camp to become a good little tax slave. Right? Are you ranked? Oh, sir, can I go to the toilet? I want to do a piss. Yeah, okay. You can go, right? It's like, oh, I'll be back in 5, right? It's like...
That's the truth. When you word it that way, it's literally the truth.
Yeah. The creativity. I never got my creativity circumcised for my brain, right? I don't know if I can use that word on here. It's the first time I use it, right? But they're snipping it off, right? They're snipping the creativity, just shut up, sit in the system. This is how it is. I think that could be a part of my success because I don't give a shit. I'm just going to keep doing what I need to do. And it's, told you it was a tangent. But
you actually you actually make it sound, I don't want to use this word too easy, but you make it sound too easy. Yeah. One thing I've picked up what you're saying is, you've said it a few times, and it's actually making me relook at it this way, is that this really is a game. So if you approach it and look at it like a game, it's learning about just going through the rules of the game and going, okay, how do I play it? Because otherwise it's going to play us. Or it's playing us. It's playing us without us even knowing it.
We're born into survival mode. Right? We're born into survival. It's like, as a kid, like I was sitting at Christmas or a kid's birthday or something like that. It was like I was at my brother's house and his in-laws were around and his kids were there and my nephew, he's like, I don't know, 16, 17 now, and he was like probably 14 at the time. And his grandmother, not my mum, like he's my brother's wife's mum, his grandma. And she goes, oh, what are you going to do when you finish school? What job are you going to do? And I'm thinking, like, it's just society is going, what job are you going to do? A society would expect you to do that, but the society expectations and pressures on people is like, I'm going to go to university, I'm going to go get a job. It's like, no, I want to go and do this, right? But no one's saying, like, what problems are you going to fix? How are you going to contribute? What do you see as, what do you want to do in your life, right? How are you going to, what do you, you want to go? There's people out there making... I was at an awards night for a finance company of mine, right? And most people like drinking and stuff last night. And I went to the winners and I said, tell me the 5 things that you think got you these awards last night and tonight. And they were saying, oh, I did TikToks, I did this and I did that, right? I was like, cool, this guy's doing TikToks about finance in Nepalese to a community and he just gets first home buyers into that. I'm like, this guy's the most successful broker out there, right? And it's looking at, there's people out there, there's chicks out there in lingerie on Instagram, there's all different things in the world. And it's like the system just says you have to be this way. And it's like, it's an industrial, it's a production plant, right? We're in a production plant from when we're born, slap a little tag on the kid, give them a birth certificate, right? Get them indoctrinated in the system, right? Really look at if anyone's watching, they're having kids, right? What are you signing them up to? What are the rights that they're losing as a child? It's a very interesting system out there, and if you can look at it from that perspective, and I look at it wild now because I don't care anymore. Like the money side of things, like it's okay, the money's done, right? But it's like I look at it like I don't agree with that. Everyone do whatever you want, but I just don't want to. I don't want to participate, and I think that's why I'm a bit wacky now.
Well, Wayne was telling a story when he was younger, and he used to go up to all the grandparents at at parties and stuff and say, okay, tell me if you were 18, what would you want to know now? And it just sort of popped into my head. And they said, spent more time with family and that, and that I shouldn't have worked too much. Like,
learn to invest.
Yeah, and learn to invest. That was the other one. Now, you just said that. Yeah. Was that something that you've always done? Just been curious and asked people, okay, so what worked for you? And then try to apply that in your life? Or?
So I think the system takes critical thinking away from people. Yeah. And I think asking questions I'm always curious. It's like if someone tells me no, I'm like, but why? I'm like that annoying kid. It's like, but why? But why, mum? Why? Why gotta do this? It's like this can't happen. But why? Like, someone else has got that. This is happening over here. Like, so I think it's important. Like, and I don't like no. I just don't like no. I'm just like, well, what do I have to do to get it? What do I have to do to get there?
All that comes into my mind is just you're just a problem solver. Like you just see something, you go, okay, how do I get around that? Like, how can I make that happen?
Yeah.
Like,
You basically just said that before, Nathan, because I've got, with my 4 children, my 19-year-old son now, like I'm obviously guiding him into something that he wants to do. And he loves social media. He's doing that as a career move, I guess you want to call it. But it's interesting because that's now made me think that the proposal I should put forward is, well, you're so young, the world's there, what problem are you going to solve? Your approach should be, what problem are you going to solve? Instead of just locking into the system of getting a job, paying your 9 to 5, and there's your paycheck every week, and what problem are you going to solve? It's an interesting way of looking at it.
I got no idea on parenting, like as far as like the best results. I don't like my parenting style and parenting thoughts are like very different. And I think it's like as you go through, like I've seen kids at pools, right? Kids in swimming schools, and like sometimes like there's a way of training because you just throw them in the pool and have to get themselves to safety or they die, right? It's like you don't want to throw the kid in there and whatnot. But there's like a part of it. It's like they naturally know how to do it, but people get, oh, come here and like, mother, I can't swim. I'm like the most unco person that can't swim. But it's like throwing the kid in the deep end and working it out. It's like there's all different ways to it. Like in life, sometimes we're just thrown in the deep end and we have to find a way. It's a survival mechanism.
Yeah, but like the world does need obviously, professional people in jobs like doctors, lawyers, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But when you ask someone that's in starting out or whatever, what instead of asking them what you said before, what job do you want to do? It's what problem do you want to solve? Yeah, they still want to be a doctor, but like, what problem are you going to solve in that field? And look at it from that point perspective instead. Yeah. And that way, instead of just being a doctor, he might be change the world somehow in that field, instead of just going, I just want to be a doctor. I might just change that mindset for them to maybe invent something in that field.
So sorry.
I was going to say, like, why do kids, I see kids now and they're like, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, right? It's like your parents have told you get the highest paying job, right? Go be a doctor, go be a lawyer. And if we look at university, it's like if someone goes to be a doctor and they say we all go to the doctor today and the doctor says, I go, I've got, I don't know, gout, right? Just making it up, touch wood, I don't have gout, right? But
that's why you stopped drinking.
No,
Chose a pretty gross one to pull out of the air there, but
I don't know, I just thought of it, right? And then you go to the doctor can't give you nutritional advice. The doctor can't say, hey, you got to stop drinking, you got to stop eating, you got to do this, you got to do that. They go, here's a pill, right? And it's like, I look at all the professions. If you think about a lawyer, you think about a doctor, you think about an accountant, you think about whatever. If they prescribe something outside of that box, they lose their license to operate. And it's like the doctor is just really the licensed, the certified salesperson to give the result. It's just random. I was at the doctor and this doctor said, oh, do you mind if the student doctor, she's like a very young Indian lady, right? And I was like, I didn't know what to say, right? Because I get awkward sometimes in situations. I said, lucky I don't have to pull my pants down today, right?
She's like, surprise, you do.
I made a joke, but we all laughed.
And then you hear the snap. No.
And we all had a laugh. And I walked in, I was like, why did I say that for? I just had to say something, right? Because I'm socially awkward sometimes. And I thought about it. I thought, doctors, every time someone goes to a doctor, the client's coughing on them, spluttering on them. They have to drop their dags. They're not. It's not when you're not in the best position when you go to the doctor. The doctor be getting coughed on. Like, it's like, is it really worth all that? No,
I'll tell you one thing I hate at the doctors is waiting. Yeah. It's like your time's more valuable than mine, really. Yeah. Like, that's all right. Just sit here for 45 minutes.
Sit in a room of other sick people.
Yeah.
Look at each other.
Yeah.
It's interesting though when we talk about career choices, like what Chrisso you just brought up, then like the world's still needing some sort of like professions and things like that. So I wonder where being driven by a passion, like talking about what we're saying, approaching something with, okay, you want to start a business, get out there and solve a problem, find what a problem is and solve the problem, compared to driven by what you're passionate about. Because I didn't, I'm a plumber and I run a plumbing company. Now, it's not because I'm passionate about being a plumber. I obviously fell into a trade or you call the system, I guess. So I wonder where passion plays into it, because I've been telling my kids, well, what are you passionate about? Yeah. What are the things you love doing? And I think a lot of that would lead down on what you're saying. There are people out there that are passionate about wanting to become a doctor. So it's not so much, I guess, finding a solution to a problem, because the world still does need that. But then I wonder where passion plays a role then.
Discover multi-award winning real estate with podcast sponsor One Life Property Group, based on the Sunshine Coast, Queensland, specialising in everything from high-end duplexes to multi-residential developments, ensuring the highest quality workmanship. Visit onelifepropertygroup.com.au today to achieve excellence in your next property development.
I think there's pain all around us, but I think if you can try and get yourself out of that, I don't think there's many people becoming trades nowadays as well. Like there's a lack. Like I'm from Sydney, and it's like we need to. In Sydney, it's like we need to keep migrating people to bring trades in to keep up with demand there, right? And I think if we look back, like we're going to look at trades in 10 years' time and saying, shit, we need more trades, and that'll be a very valuable skill set. And if someone wants to be a doctor, be a lawyer, whatever, but there's so many people I've heard, it's like, oh, I've studied for 3 years at uni and I just gave up my Bachelor of Arts, and so what does that even mean?
Because that gets you somewhere, Bachelor of Arts. Do we even know what Bachelor of Arts does? I don't even know.
No idea, right?
It shows you can learn something. That's it.
Bachelor of Arts. Wow, what does it do?
I don't have a university degree, but I employ a lot of people that do, right? It's like they're needed. They're very much needed. But I think it's another job, and the system, like we educated go, well, you should take on debt for that. Like I can't at 18, I couldn't get a home loan. Like I found it hard to get a home loan. I found it hard to get a credit card to pay for my Dodo internet back in the day, because you never had
that for a long time.
You only had FPOS. You never had Visa debit cards before.
Yeah.
So I had to get a credit card, and they wouldn't give me a credit card for $1,000. I had like 20 grand in my bank account, and I was like, this doesn't make sense. But you can't go get a loan for things when you're young. You can, but people think it's hard. It's easy to go. You don't have to do a credit application to go, I want to go to university to become whatever, get a Bachelor of Arts, and kids just go, oh, it's the best thing to do. Go to university, go get a degree. And is it really what they want to be doing? And about, doing things that you love, if you do the things that you love, that's cool. But you also need to know how you're going to get paid from that too. So I think too many people try and do things out of love, and they end up, the crazy cats in the caravan type thing. It's like they're just, so it's finding that thing you love and then trying to monetize it. And there's lots of layers to it, I guess.
So I think going back to one of the things that I guess stuck out from what you said at the start was that you looked around to rich people and you saw the cars, the motels, the whatever, and you said to yourself, well, that's what I want. I want that. Yeah. So it's as if you saw what you wanted. It wasn't that you're so much passionate about property, but you went, okay, well, that's what I want. So what vehicle am I going to use to get me there? Well, I'll use property to do it. So it wasn't like you were driven by property. I mean, it's you've just used it to get what you want.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I think with a lot of our listeners would be asking themselves, a lot of men in regards to what it is, their marriage, their business, whatever it is. When you're starting out at something and it looks like everything is against you, it's really going to come down to you going, well, what is it that I want from this?
Yeah.
Looking at, okay, where do I want to get to? What's the result I want? And then when you've come to that and you go, well, that is what it is that I want, then you find the vehicle to get you there. Whether that's property or whether that's following a different passion, it's finding what it is that's going to get you to where it is that what you want.
Yeah.
In your case, though, did you have a passion about property, or was it more, okay, well, that's just what we used to get there? Because you do other things now too. You're not just property. You do shitloads of other stuff.
Yeah, I was at a podcast one day and I was like, fuck, I own a Chinese restaurant.
You do?
I own a Chinese restaurant. I've never cooked a dim sum before, but yeah, I own a Chinese restaurant.
Sweet and sour pork all over that.
It's in cans. I bought it as a part of a resort, and I was like, oh, we'll just, whatever. It just chugs along.
Casually buy a Chinese restaurant.
It just came as a part of the deal. But I'd say I'm an investor. Like, property is my favourite go-to, and if I look back for all the reasons of why, it's tangible, it's physical, it's there. You can get a loan against it. It's very commoditized, and it's set up for a position. If the property market collapsed, too bad, the banking system would collapse, and if the banking system collapsed, it would bring down the stock market with it. So there's lots of people indirectly. Like let's say we own a house and it's unencumbered with no mortgage, right? The value of that property isn't valued because of you or because of your work or anything like that. It's valued because everyone else in your neighborhood can go on their income to go and get a loan to pay for their house and add value into the market. So it's a banker's game. It's not a property game. Yeah. The property is just the vehicle that they use there. Yeah. So property is my favorite go-to, but then business, I don't talk about lots of things. I'll talk about lots of things here today, actually. I don't know. I'll just be open. I don't go into like intricates of my business and stuff on my own channels and like my business stuff. But like I buy companies. I have over 100 companies. Like I never talk about that. Like all different types of businesses. A lot of them revolve. I'd say like 90% of them would revolve around the property and financial services space. And I bought 6 businesses this month, like just random. Don't really want to go into all the specifics of what they were and stuff, but they're in the property space, and I'm very big. I was thinking the other day, I was like working out, and I was like, I want to buy some stock listed companies one day. It's just a goal, right? There's some items there that I want to take and acquire. And I was like, I'll be buying these off an old white-haired man, right? I'm pushing the chest press. And I was like, I'm becoming that white-haired old dude, right? But I'm there before it, right? And like, they didn't do it in their time that they were big, right? They didn't do it. And looking at it, I just see that there's so much opportunity. I think between the 40s and 50s, I think I'm going to be more of a businessman in that period of time. And there's lots of opportunity out there. I invest in all different things. See about the crypto, I still own crypto, not as much as what I used to, because it takes your mind off. Like, I've had times where my crypto went up like $1 million to 1.5 to 2 million. I was like, I just made $1 million. Did absolutely nothing for it, right? And then you do nothing for 3 days because you're just like, I just made $1 million. The next day it goes back down and like, fuck, I just really wasted all that opportunity, right? And it's like looking at it and stuff. So I got rid of it a few years ago, but I still have mining farms. So like I mine crypto, and I mine crypto so much that I got raided from the cops because they thought I had a drug lab going, because it was like 20 grand a month power from a house, and I even...
Because you had like, was it shipping containers or something? You had like pods of some sort where you were...
I had my garage. I built a garage, and then I had like 6 whirlybirds on a double garage, and then the police did a sting over it, and it was my house that I lived in, and we had to cut the pole fuses off out the front because it was like blowing. Like every time I had to disconnect every appliance from my kitchen. I was like just running it lean. I don't know much about electricity, right? But I've got a mate that's like a bit of a dork like me from school. And I told him one day, and he looked at all these computers I was setting up, like, what's he on? And he came back 2 days later and he's like, I couldn't sleep for 2 days. He goes, this is amazing. I can't understand how this could work. So he started getting into mining and we're trying to work out how to lower the cost of the electricity and the output and getting the best result. And after getting raided, I thought it was funny because I go down to the police station, my staff said the police came, and I was like, I wonder what it's about, right? And it could be this, it could be a cow that escaped off my farm and hit a car, hit it, let's go down. They go, Nathan Birch, I'm this. I still remember the cop's name, so I'm from the drug squad. I was like, oh, here we go, I know what it is now, right? And they'd done like a full stakeout, and another one of my staff had got calls saying we need to speak to Nathan about one of his properties, and I never got back to it. I was just too busy. And they'd been doing infrared over the roof of the garage and the heat from it, and they thought it was like a marijuana thing or something, I don't know. And they sent in the drug squad, do a raid on it. I wasn't home that day, and they called me down because they had to serve me like a search warrant. And I just laughed, and they go, what are the computers from? I'm like, I'm mining crypto, right? So I was like, how can I get it so I can scale it without, like it costs a lot to mine this stuff. So I've got a bit of a system happening. I bought 5,000 square meters of land, 1,250 acres, and I use secondhand solar panels. And tradies that install solar panels, I get paid like $10 per panel, and they recycle them. So they just load up shipping containers, and then once the shipping container's full, I get it shipped out and put a new one there, and they can just keep loading them up, and then they get shipped out to the farm. And then my mate, the dorky mate I was telling you about, he created a system to stabilize the current, so it stays between 11.5 and 12.5 volts, and then we don't need the power supply unit, basically the PSU, for it, so we can run it directly from the solar power. It only works for like 11 hours a day, but it's all using sustainable secondhand stuff, and it's totally off the grid. And I'm buying crypto from that. So that's my only real crypto investment.
Yeah, only real crypto. It doesn't sound like much money.
It runs off a solar farm.
Yeah.
It's like a real shanty style one, but it's mad. So
I've done really well at crypto. I'm the guy where I'm the indicator. It's when I sell, everything seems to go straight up after that. So watch me when I sell stuff. It's the time to buy.
yeah, it's like a
how bad
poker
I've got.
machine. It's like, it really is like a poker machine. But there's nothing out there. Like, I've had some coins that I bought for like $1,000, and they went up to like, the other $1 went to $100, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to sell these things, right? And there's times where I never sold them, and it's like, no other investment out there, like for the play of it, will give you that sort of return. But it is like a poker machine, because it's not a right place to store your wealth. It's a hope, and it's a luck and all that. But I think some of the cryptos will survive, many different storms. And I think that like Bitcoin and Ethereum and Litecoin and the OGs of crypto space will be here for a long period. And they have massive intrinsic value. People say, crypto is not backed by anything. Well, to make one coin, it's going to cost you $80,000 to create it, from the computer power and the electricity drawn to make that happen. So that's where the value is derived. It can't really go below that. So,
Yeah, right. I didn't know that.
it's just processing. We could go into the depths of how crypto works if you like.
I reckon if it was a subject that I need to know about, you'd be the one to come to.
I don't know
I'm
everything.
keen to set up a farm. Let's go.
No, it's not.
I'm just Googling farms right now and solar panels.
Yes, it sounds good. I like to try and stick to my core things. There's like a wild one, but it's almost as wild as the Chinese restaurant, right? It's like, but yeah.
What makes you afraid in the investing business world? Like what gives you fear? Obviously not debt.
Yeah.
What gives you fear?
Nothing. It's a good question. I actually think regulation, like governments, because they can control and manipulate these things by policies that they push buttons on. I know the banker's game. Like, I see it. It's so clear. They're just going to keep printing more money. And the day that they stop, that's when the day it's like, okay, this thing's going to pop. But they'll all get wiped out if they don't keep printing money. So they're going to have to keep printing this money. So I'm comfortable there. But I think, legislation, like I see, if we all think back to the days that we were born and think about how life was to where it is today, we are more, I'm using the words because I don't want us getting shadow banned or anything, but like, we're more communist than ever beforehand, right? Like,
Trust me, I've said that so many times. Wife and I have that conversation every single day.
It's real
It's a
conscious.
communist country. We don't want to say we are.
We're free-range commies, right?
Yeah.
We think we're free, right? People say, "Oh no, Kim Jong-un, he's a really bad guy." It's like, well, he shows he's a dictator, but you don't realize that you're in a farm like that. We're in a prison camp. Yeah, as humans, we're born into that, and it's a slavery system. It's like, we think we're free, but if we walk down to the shops and like an animal does and wear no clothes, we're going to get arrested. Right? We go and cross the road when it's a red light, we're going to get locked up. We say something wrong or yell and scream, like we're not free, and that's just like a real basic level. But yeah, looking at our lives, the more years that our lives have gone on, like, as a kid, there was never a 40k zone. As a kid, there was never a detection camera, right? I saw this meme the other day, and it's like, people think that texting and driving is bad, which it is, right? I don't condone any of this sort of stuff. But like, who remembers driving with their CD player with like the folder, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Sit in your lap.
You can't hold your phone to push the sat nav, right? Yeah. But you can sit there with the street director and go, "Oh yeah, I've got to turn the steering wheel on." Right. So our whole lives, we've been getting more and more oppression put on us, right? And the thing that scares me with financials is like, some of my assets are cool, right? They're like very decentralized. I'm not saying crypto stuff, but it's like liquid. But there's lots of stuff which they can, at a flick of a switch, like change the rule, and it's game over. And I look at property, for example. People say property, I want to own it cash. I don't want debt. And it's like, well, pay at your property and have no loan on it, and then never pay anything else and see who really owns it. Because you don't own it. You never owned it. Even if you pay it off, it's just like it's one less layer of control over the top of you, but there's still already 20 different levels of control, whether it be the state, whether it be the country, whether it be the crown, whether it be land tax, whether it be some other sort of local government trying to screw you. There's always, you can't control whatever you want. You can't just go knock over trees. It happens sometimes. They fall over in storms, right? But
All my trees at the back here just fell over.
yeah,
Super neat.
I had
All at the same level. It's
I had
weird.
about 30 of them fall over last week, right? Just happens.
Because more second-hand solar panels are coming. See?
Oh, no, not there, like in my actual house. I live on a farm, right? Just big windy storms in Sydney, But it's like the control of it, like it's like you never own it. So like I just see like we're in a wild world where 3 years ago, 4 years ago, people would never have woken up to be like, they don't control themselves, right? It's like you being stuck in your house, you can't move, your freedom of, that scares me. That scares me. It scares me for me, it scares me for kids. Sometimes I think I'm at a war with the surroundings that we're on and we need to be on, prepared at any time. So,
Well, that's something I've been thinking about is there's that massive thing out there where like the housing crisis and everyone talks about it. And then, if a politician wants to be re-elected, all they're going to do is go, well, let's make it easier for people to have houses. But it also means that the people that have the houses, that's going to make it worse for them. So that's in my limited knowledge, but I'd like to know your expertise.
Yeah, look, I think it takes a lot. Like if we look at the Ponzi scheme of the government we've got and the system and that, for us to serve our debt, we need more tax slaves in the system, right? We can't breed quick enough. So we need to migrate people. So that's why we're seeing massive levels of migration to service the debt that we've got, yeah? That's why they're putting the pressure on our infrastructure, yeah? We can't keep up with the infrastructure. The problem, reaction, solution is just never ending, right? And they have the growth of these civilizations, yeah? And qualities disappear from that, right? Quality of life. And we had the joke about, did I get stuck on the road, the main road that's out here, right? And it's like, that road wasn't like that 5 years ago before all the refugees came from Melbourne to Queensland, right? It's like,
They did. They still haven't stopped. Yeah.
Doesn't stop. And then, there's new people going to Melbourne, right? And it's just like it's churning that system. So the thing that I fear isn't that they could control it, because the politicians really just someone they've been placed there. It's a selection. You've got two, right? It's like, I don't want either of them. I don't like any of the politicians. I want to put my own one in, but people can't vote for them in, right? Because you've got a selection of two people or three people or five groups of people or whatever. But you're looking at what they could do to property. They could put disincentives out there to, they could tax it to the hell. They could put in there, limits of what you could do from pushing the rents up, rent control, stuff like that would really screw the system up. But I don't see it, but I didn't see lots of things years ago either that could happen to our life. Yeah, so I don't know.
Well, I would just ask you that question before about, what scares you or what things are fearful for you. Yeah. You're at a completely different financial level to most of us, right? Do you think because your answer to that was you don't fear anything, like you're not really scared of anything when it, in regards to the system or whatever. Is there things that we should be afraid of? Because I'm not going to say this with all respect, but you're at a far different financial level than us. So if something was to go wrong for you, not a problem.
If I didn't see what I see and see it from my eyes, the thing I'd fear, the number one thing would be inflation. Yeah. People don't even know.
Further than what we're into now.
It's nothing yet.
Really?
Yeah. So the reason why I started talking weird and wacky things 5 years ago about like the system, and you said, he's more than just a property dude. Because I talk about property and it's very, buy 10 properties, buy 20 properties, like I'm ordering lunch, right? 3 fish cocktails, whatever. Buy 10 properties, do this. And it's just numbers at the end of the day. But ultimately, it's that game board that we're playing on. It's that system that we're playing on, right? And it's like, it's if we didn't have that table to sit at, then we couldn't play the game that the bankers are playing. And it's just a game, really, that they've got. So I look at it from a level of inflation. The inflation's occurring from the currency that's being created, right? If we had $1 trillion of debt at 10 basis points, so 10 basis points is 100 basis points is 1% interest rate, right? So 10 basis points is 10% of 1% of the interest rate, which is where it was at. So if we look at the level of debt that's sloshing through the system out there, they can't increase interest rates because it's going to exacerbate the level of pain, right? Because they have to print more money now to service that debt, right? And this debt is spiraling out of control in the world because they've printed it all into existence. It never existed beforehand, right? And with these currencies that we're using, whether it's dollars or yen or pesos or whatever, they're all backed off a US dollar, yeah? So they've printed so much debt or currency out there, and it's devaluing what it can buy. So it's not that, I don't know, you want $50 or don't want $50. It's like, I can't take that $50 and buy what I need to from me giving you this over. So I'd rather have this and give you that. And it's a currency debasement that's happening. So I'm excited by it, right? So you ask me, is it a fear? It's like, I'm excited. I've got heaps of things that I've invested into, just inflated away because everything I've got becomes more valuable, right? But if I didn't have the assets, the biggest fear I'd have would be the inflation, because there's no way out of this. And for a bit of homework for listeners to think about, and I don't mean it to sound scary and like, ask me what am I fearing and, what I should fear. There's been over 10,000 different currencies in the last 1,000 years, right? We think of dollars as what they are, and the dollar's been around in 3 different versions of itself over the last 100 years in itself. So 1913 to 1933, 1933 to 1971, and 1971 to today. And I feel it's deviated from about 2008. It's turned into another beast of itself. But there's been over 10,000 currencies that have lost complete value. They've lost all of their worth.
Wow.
Right? And they've all died of a hyperinflation. And it's a collapse of the empire that happens at that point. I don't think we're on the door of that. Like we're closed, right? We're in the waiting room area. Does everyone freak out and all that? But there's no turning back from the level of debt that's in the system. We just have to keep printing currency to survive. And the more currency they print, the more everything goes up. So if you guys traveled overseas,
Yeah.
I don't know which countries these are, right? Because I'm scared of airplanes. What I fear in life, I don't like planes. So I'm fearful. I drove here today, right? I'm scared of planes. I got a helicopter, it's okay, but a plane, I don't like. Because I'm trapped in there. But so we go to a country, and like there's Asian countries which have currencies which are like, you can buy a hamburger for 5,000, 10,000 of their local currencies, rupees, whatever, right?
Yep.
That wouldn't have always been the case, right? The currencies have been devalued, right? Zimbabwe, Venezuela, Turkish lira at the moment, Lebanon, they're all going through, either have or are going through levels of hyperinflation, which just wipes out their currency. It happened in the 1920s in Germany, and then it creates instabilities, wars, tensions. I just see that the currency is the biggest issue. And for as much as you believe in a currency, you have a faith in a currency, the government becomes the god, right? And it has a ruling power over the people. And that's, I don't like the control mechanism, because people are controlled by that. It's very bad. So I look at it as I think that's a big fear that I see most people should have is the government. The government doesn't control the people, but the weapon is the currency. And we're all born into the system where we're like obeying with, the money. It's like people do things for money. Everything's about money. And the money should just be a mode of trade. It's a currency to operate. They traded shells and traded silver and gold and other types of metals over the years. The purest would be gold and silver. There's God's money. But, we're now in, if we really want to go down a rabbit hole, and
Take us there, mate. Let's go.
All the words are even spelling, right? It's put you under a spell, right? All the things that the English language is very spelling, yeah. And it's like, it's just all the words that are there, right? And I think about money, right? Money is just a word. Where did money come from, right? Mono, I, the one eye, right? If you look through religions, right? The one eye is the devil, right? It's the devil's game. We're being controlled via the currency. It's a control mechanism.
There is a book out there that talks about where money came from, and it was just someone's idea. And he was a dodgy guy too. So, and he tried to sell it to the English, they wouldn't do it. So he went to the to French to do it, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, this works. This is a good way to control people." And then it grew from there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, the banking system created from the goldsmiths, and they used to store the gold, and then they started a dodgy system by cutting the metal, and they did IOUs, and that's sort of where it came from in like 300 years ago, like from when it lost its value. And it's just, there is no, the word fiat is fake, yeah, and a lot of words that we see in our world are Latin, right? So mortgage means death contract, right? Government
Does it really?
is mind control. Yeah.
Wow.
Tell you one thing I find really interesting is banking in the early days was one of the most hated professions around, and now they see, bankers as like amazing people. So, but yeah, it was really looked down on when you were like, I don't know what century it was, but, I think it came from all the shipping issues and stuff like that. So, the pound of flesh and whatnot. Yeah.
So I'm sure you think bankers are amazing people too. Yeah?
Look, if people really knew the bank, like look at the real banking, it's not like you go to your local bank, your big four banks, and they're all lovely people, right? But it's like the controllers, who owns those banking systems, who are the cartels behind these things, right? Then we're really digging up a big game.
The Rothschilds and all that.
Those sort of guys.
Yeah. I've been looking into it.
Yeah.
Watch a lot of that stuff on YouTube.
And the people out there, like on YouTube, they're like, "Oh, I hate these guys." I'm like, they controlled it, right? Like, good on them. Right?
As you said, you just see it as a game.
This is a game. It's like those guys. What can you learn from them? It's like they created the table for everyone to play at. It's like you can get angry. Oh, my house has gone up. It's like, well, participate in it. Right? It's like you can get angry that whatever. It's like if they didn't create that, you wouldn't have. There wouldn't be a market. So. Yeah.
Can I ask you some super practical questions, like straight up real practical? Yeah. I want to give you some scenarios, right? So just in regards to, I guess, our audience or even just some of the guys here or just right across the board. Yeah. But you take, say, a standard husband, wife, 2 kids situation, family unit that's out there. The guy's on 80,000 a year, the wife's on 60,000. Without a get-rich-quick scheme, what would someone like that, what advice would you give to someone like that if they came to you and said, hey, we want to start investing, we would love to get wealthy, we've got 20 grand in the bank, this is what we earn, what do you think we should do? What would you tell that guy?
Yeah, it's an important question because it always asks, what's the more question, right? So we need to look at everything you do from the eyes of the bank. Yeah. So I always think if someone's going to buy a property, what is the end goal, like that per scenario? But then what does the bank require from you? So let's just use one income, one person, like a single person with no kids, just for the exercise, yeah? So let's say someone's on 100 grand, yeah? Because like the question I'd have on the back of that, do they have kids? Do they not have kids? What debt do they have? All that sort of stuff. Let's assume that it's a couple, they're on, I don't know, 150K, or it's a single person on 100, and they've got minimal debt. They might have a car loan, might have a bit of credit card, but they don't have anything crazy. And they've got 20 grand, 30 grand. I'd take that cash and put it in a property. If you don't have enough cash, work out how you're going to get the cash. And a lot of people say that they don't have ability to. I was dating a chick once, and I was like, I don't know, 25. She was like 18. I bought like an Eminem CD, right? And I was so excited. She goes, didn't you buy it? It was like 15 years ago. I thought, no, my time for 1 hour's worth of work would have put into that CD. It wasn't important to me. So I sacrificed that shit, right? So there's things that you can do in your life to cut out, right? You can cut out, how can you save money and that sort of stuff. So if you had 30 grand, 40 grand, you can buy a property. And I'm not talking getting hocked to the hill dead. You can find properties in Australia in 2024 for like 200 grand. Yeah. So you can put down like a 20 grand deposit, a 40 grand deposit and buy a property. 150 grand. I did one in Victoria the other day, 119 grand. They're out there. So I would look at, buying a property that would have equity in it that I could pull out and use for the next purchase. So if I buy something for 200 and I can come back and revalue it for 250, then there's 50 grand equity there. I get 80% loan of that, so it's 40 grand I get back. I put 50 grand into the deal, 40 grand deposit, 10 grand closing costs. Have a 160k loan. I revalue it, pull out 40k. I can use that as my second deposit, and then copy and paste that. Now, income is dependent on the lending of the bank, and a lot of people get stuck. The trap people fall into, they go, I can buy $1 million worth of property, let's go buy a house to live in. Well, you got two people, let's say they're a young couple, they haven't got married yet, or they're getting married, they want to have kids, they don't have kids. You got $1 million worth of debt. Well, then you have a kid, then you're like, oh, we can't afford it, we've got to go put the kid in daycare, right? So then suddenly you've disassociated your family, you're breaking your family unit up. People you're on the hook to pay that debt. So I look at, instead of buying $1 million house to live in, if you bought 5 properties for 200 grand a piece, right? You only need 30 grand, 40 grand, 50 grand to put in as a deposit on one of these properties. You put it in. If it's renting for $300 a week, it's neutral cash flow. The rent is covering all the expenses, the interest rates, all that sort of stuff. It's wiping its own nose. Then pull out the equity, buy the second property. Pull it out, buy the third property. So let's say we get 5 properties in a year, 2 years' time, whatever. You've got $1 million worth of debt. So you could have bought the house to live in for $1 million, but the difference is that you got 2 incomes, the husband and the wife, the boyfriend, girlfriend. 2024 could be whoever, 2 people, right? The 2 them, right? With their pink hair, right? Blue hair, right?
That's the stupidity, actually. That's the reality of the stupidity of the world we live in at the moment.
Yeah. So you got the husband, wife, whatever, whoever they are, right? They have to go to work to earn the money. They're on 150 grand income. If one of them don't want to work, they're half of their income, whatever, right? Instead, if you spend that $1 million and bought 5 properties like that, right? You have your 150 grand income coming through, and then you've got now 5 tenants going out every week earning money, right? And they're paying the rent. $300, $300, $300, 5 times 300, $1,500, $1,500 times 52 weeks, 78,000 plus 150 is like 228,000 a year. So when you go back to the bank doesn't see you as 150 grand anymore. They see you at 228,000. If one of those tenants don't pay, we're still on 200,000, 210,000, whatever the case may be. So you've got now, instead of having 2 options, the husband and the wife as an income, now you've got 7 options. You've got 5 tenants and you got yourself. So I'll be looking to build out that asset base. And once you get the asset set, you know that they're going to keep printing more money. So then the more money they print, the more it costs to build that house, right? The less achievable to get that asset there is, so the asset price will rise. And the debt, like I remember getting 100 grand debt. I was like, shit, I'm going to go bankrupt, right? In my head, I'm like, the mindset we're getting, oh, it's bad, debt's bad, whatever. And now people drive around, every second car is like 100 grand car, and I'm sure that half of them are on loans. So yeah, like you want to try and minimise the risk along the way. And if you can buy the property below market value, you've got a buffer in case the market falls and goes backwards. If you're buying it below market value, you've got equity in there, so you can use that towards the next deposit. And if buying the property with a positive cash flow, then is looking after itself. It's not taking you to have to go to work every week to pay for that thing. And that's what I'll be looking at.
But obviously that train of thought and that method is there's going to be sacrifices. How does someone in that position look at it and go, okay, I'm not going to have the $1 million house with all the bells and whistles and all the nice things for my family. We're going to go down this path. Yeah. Sure, there's going to be sacrifices. How do they deal with that? Like, how do they go? Be comfortable with that.
Yeah. Basically, how do you tell your wife that you're not going to get the house?
Yeah, because that's going to be the big question.
You both need to be on board. Like I did a seminar once, and then the next day the client came to me and said, "Oh, we separated last night because we don't see eye to eye, right?" It's like I was like, "Fuck." Well, like,
thanks, Nathan.
It's like, I was like a big eyed, I'd like.
And now he's a multi-millionaire.
Now that guy's rich.
Look, it's choose your sacrifice, right? Like if we want to be fit and healthy, we have to sacrifice and go to the gym. We're going to have to go through the pain, all that. And if we don't, we go, okay, cool, we don't have to do that. And then we go and end up in the hospital bed because we're not fit and healthy and all that sort of stuff. The sacrifice of like it's the interpretation and the mindset and my thought of that sacrifice. Choose the hard, right? Because if you go and buy that house, well, then you're going to be strapped to that debt, and there's no other one coming to save you on that front. And I'm going to use an example. I'm going to use 2 examples of when I bought houses to live in. I've lived in 3 principal place of residences ever. My first one, they're pretty funny stories to show how I got into it, right? So if I went back to the 18-year-old version of myself, I was buying shit in like, I always call my properties like crap, right? Because they're just nothing special, right? You'll be proud of some of them. I'll share one that's local to here, like a penthouse that I had in close by. So if I bought a house in Mount Druitt back in the day, I could have bought 3 houses in Mount Druitt and the rent would have covered itself, or 5 houses or units or whatever. But I could have bought a property in, say, Borkham Hills, and that property in Borkham Hills, which is in like Sydney suburb, it was nothing major, like 500,000 at the time. It would have been negative cash flow on the interest rate back in 2003 by like $80,000, like $40,000 a year, just given all the parameters to it. So I couldn't have, it would have been a 3-bedroom red brick house. It wouldn't have been the dream house. So I remember getting my first property that I lived in, and I had boxes, and I'd always save newspapers, like stacks of them, I still got them all, of when I'd be in the media. So when I have kids and I'm like, old and boring, and I have kids and they're like, Dad, shut up, you know what you're talking about. I'll be like, look, I was cool once, right? I was like front page, right? I was like, don't hang shit on me, right? So I kept it. I remember I was like putting these boxes away. This is before everyone hated Donald Trump, right? And it was a newspaper article from Mount Druitt that said,
We're all Trump fans here, by the way.
Oh,
just in
okay.
case.
No, like I'm politically atheist. Like I like the guy, but I'm just like, they shake hands with people. Like I don't know, right? Like it's I just
Kiss the baby.
Yeah, it's like I just don't know, right? I feel like I'm just uneasy about it all. But people used to really like, everyone loved him, right? But now it's like, the media bashes him up or whatever. So it was a front page story, and it said the Donald Trump of Mount Druitt, right? And it had I had 120 properties or something like that. And I was putting these boxes in like the hallway cupboard. I still remember it was so long ago. I was putting them in the cupboard. I was like, this is funny, right? I've never owned a house to live in. I've got 100 properties plus. And this is my first house I ever lived in. And I bought it on a 6-month settlement. I've always been broke whenever I do a decision because I don't respect money, right? I'm always wanting to collect the asset. And when I bought that house, how I did it is I sold the first house I ever bought just to show people I wasn't emotionally attached to the actual asset that I was acquiring or holding. And I put up, I remember thinking it was $1.2 million. I took out a $952,000. It was 1.19. It was like $952,000 was my loan amount, and interest rates were like 8%. And I thought, this is like, 80, 90 grand a year. And I thought, if something goes wrong in my life, I'm going to have to come up with like $1,600 a week. This thing, if I rent it out, will only be $600 a week. I'll be short. If I have to get in a position where I have to move out of my house and move back home with my mum, then I'd still be $1,000 a week short. So I wrote an email to some of my property managers, and I said, put this rent up by $30, this rent up by $30, $20, whatever. And I put up about 30 of my 120 or whatever properties I owned at the time's rent. And those rents bought me an extra $1,000 a week. So my tenants from Mount Druitt paid for me to live on an acreage, right? Like the age of like 27 or something. And then that was my tenants paying for my lifestyle to live in. So I would never have got into that 5 acres. I would never have got into that house now. I still own it, rent it out. It's positive cash flow nowadays, which is pretty funny. But it's worth like $5 million. But I would never have been able to get it because I wouldn't have made that one sacrifice. But the sacrifice wasn't really much because I'd still be working to pay the first one off, but my tenants were paying for that one at the time. And then when I got my second one, that's a bit boring. I got the third one. The third one was $4 million. That's the one I live in currently. And I always joke it's like a big spec home, right? It's like, it's nice. It's not. It's a fair home for today. And I was sitting there and, I'll just shorthand it without giving all the details and descriptions of who I was chatting to about and stuff. But I was like, I need to buy this property. I need, the space and all that. So I just went out and bought the thing. And, it was asked to me, how are you going to afford it, right? I just bought like 20 motels. I was broke as shit, right? I couldn't, I was settling motels and couldn't come up with all the funds, right? Because I was buying in cash and stuff. And I was like, oh, I'll find a way. So I did a 6-month settlement, and I sold off 5 properties on the Gold Coast, and I sold off a property in Mount Coolum. Right? I bought this unit. It was a unit in 2012. 2012 I bought it. I paid 330 odd grand for it, and then I owed, because it was paying itself down over the years, it was renting for 750 in the end, and I owed about 200 grand on that thing, and I sold it for 1.2, and that was $1 million towards the $4 million, yeah. And the other ones on the Gold Coast, I have like $1 million loan on it. It was a 3-year loan. I got to pay it out this year, but it was like, that's how I got in my dream house that I got. But I would, if I had to go and work for that house, I'd have to go and work and save for 80 years without paying a cent of interest, 50,000 a year off for 80 years to get that thing paid for. So the sacrifice wasn't really much. It was just a game along the way. But if it wasn't for the decisions that I made like the 10 years prior, I wouldn't have had the tools. I was going to say the weapons, right? But I don't know. Must be the Western Sydney. Wouldn't have had the tools, right, to get me to that, right? So when I was like, okay, I need to buy this house, space, I need to do all this stuff. It was because I had the assets there that got me there. So was it a sacrifice? No, it wasn't, because it was on the day, and it wasn't even delayed gratification. It was a tool. It was the timing. It was the right time. I didn't need a baller house when I was like 27, 28, like when you have kids and all that sort of stuff, you need certain things. So yeah, that was my story of getting to the principal places of residence. And I've used investment properties to get my holiday houses and stuff like that. But it's like most people have one option or two options. One option is their job. Second option is their spouse's job. It could be a business. It could be 3 options. But if you're building up wealth, if you've got 5 businesses where you've got 5 streams of income, you've got 5 rental properties, you've got another 5 streams of incomes. Then how do you make them pay for the things you want in your life? So I think it's just planning and
it's playing the long game instead of just you want the nice things and you want it now.
Yeah.
It's going back to the figures you were saying. You bought a place last week for, was it 290 or something, 190 or something?
119, yeah.
Okay. People listening would hear that and go, oh, look, houses like that don't exist anymore, units like that don't exist anymore. Yeah. The truth is they do, and there's a hell of a lot of them, because on all your social media, I see it all the time. I was even saw it today in your story. There was like, properties purchased today or something like that. Anyway, and you go through each state, and it's like Queensland, and you'll put all the information on there, like purchase price, 119, rental return 200, and you list all these things. And when I look at it, I go, it's one thing to go, oh, easier said than done, but it's actually quite easy to do, because I'm seeing you and your company do it daily. Yeah. You're doing it all the time. Yeah. So it's one thing for people to say, oh, easier said than done, but it's quite easy to do.
It is, but I think mindset, like we go back to the first thing we spoke about today, right? The first thing, and you said about, I forget what the word was that you said, but it was like, you asked me about the adversity, and I said it's better having nothing, starting from nothing, starting from nothing, right? But people were full of opinions, right?
Yep.
People go, oh, you can't get it. Oh, I've got it. It must be in that bad area. When I speak to people, like, oh yeah, to get a 200 grand property, it must be really regional, right? I used to buy for my clients 50 properties a month, like for about 7 years between Tweed Heads and Caboolture area every month, right? And up until like maybe a year ago, I was picking up for like 200 grand in Caboolture, right? Just down the road, half hour down the road.
Really?
Right? Yeah, right? And it's like, I've still bought this year in 2024 there for like 320 grand for like new units. You couldn't build a new unit for that price, right? Is that in the bush, right? You got families galore there, right? You can't build it. So yeah, like it doesn't have to be in the sticks, but people's opinion is, it's like to get that car, you must be a drug dealer. No, because it's impossible for you to comprehend to get to. It's like, it must be impossible, but people just put that preconceived idea. Hey, no, it's in the bush, you can't do it. It's like, I have people write in the Facebook post, scammer, you can't do this, right? I was like, I don't know how I'm trying to scam you, right? It's so much possible, right? And I had this guy the other week, he goes, I should have done it years ago. And he goes, I always thought like these posts are either bullshit or that they're real. And he goes, you couldn't be just bullshitting people and seeing the results for like a decade and 15 years. He goes, so I thought it's time to get my shit in the gear and get it happening. So yeah.
Well, mate, for those listening, going back to what I was saying, like, easier said than done is actually easy to do because you are doing it and you're doing it on the daily. Yeah. What can people do? Like, actually, no, I'll say this prior. So your primary business is Be Invested, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
And that is predominantly a buyer's agency. So you acquire properties for people.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about that real quick.
Yeah, so I started the business Be Invested 15 years ago, and I wanted to educate people on what I was doing. And back in the day, it was just renos, and here I am spray painting a house, and here I am ripping out a kitchen and renovating a house for 10 grand and stuff. And then it became, how do you get those properties for 10 grand? How do you get them for 20 grand and stuff like that? So I built a buyer's agent. There was no such thing as a buyer's agent back in the day. Now they're everywhere, but I was here at the start. And from that, I built a suite of other businesses, which, it's important to have the right team around you. So I have a finance company, property management, a law firm, an accountancy practice, all those things I set up from scratch. And I get the best people that are out there to be able to help my investors. They're the people I use as well.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And look, I've actually put two people that still live back in Sydney. I've put two people through what you do and have bought through you. Yeah. Okay. So thanks for that, mate. No, but the reason I say it,
I'm keen to hear that.
Just tap your phone here. No, but the reason I say that is because I wouldn't have. I'm not going to say that I wouldn't have had you on here, but the truth is, I've followed you for so long now that I've seen what you do. You've literally backed up everything you've said, and I've seen people throw shade. I've seen people make those comments, but yet they're the ones not doing anything, and you're the one getting richer, helping more people. Like when I go through the figures at the start, what we're saying, like the amount of people you've helped, mate. What we'll do, because we'll bring this to a close pretty quickly, but I'll put a link up of your business on the podcast here so people can see it. But tell us where, on how, what's the easiest way to get in contact with your company? Because I know, like you said, because people can come to you and you literally are a one-stop shop. People can come to you, they can get all the finance, they can get all the legal side of it done, and you'll find them a property. You do the whole thing from start to finish. For those listening, what's that website or what's that avenue? Where do they go? What do they do? Real quick.
I've been spitting out these videos for years. 1300 367 925, admin@beinvested.com.au. Reach out to my team, have a chat with them, see, a conversation. It could just be like, I've got people that are like, hey, I'm screwed, I can't do anything. And then it's like, my team have been talking, I've been talking to them on and off for 10 years, 5 years, whatever. And it's like, hey, I'm ready, I've got my stuff together, let's go. And they may not have been doing anything in 2019. In 2024, they've got 10 properties. So it's like, you just never know where a conversation will start and where you can take it to. So.
That's awesome, mate. Well, I took some notes again. Like I said to the guys here, I took some stuff away for myself out of this. But the biggest thing, obviously, is the mindset. Like you're talking about the mindset. You've made me think that this is so easy to do, and not that I've let go of it because I'm an investor myself. But you've made me rethink how easy it is when you get the right mindset in play. Creating a process and system, but also the biggest thing other than mindset that stood out is that look at it and treat it like it's a game. Understand that the banking system's a game, fiat currency is a game. The way that everything operates is a game, and if you can treat it like that and approach it that way and just play the game, mate, there's no limit to. I mean, you literally are living proof of when you feel like as if you're starting back here. We mentioned before already, but school failures, ADD, all this kind of stuff. Where you're born geographically, the world has said, "Oh, it's a shame, mate, because statistically you're not going to make it," and yet you are surpassing so many people, mate. So first of all, again, well done to yourself, but you've made it. You've proved your point. The proof is in the pudding for yourself, mate. And look, we've appreciated and loved you being a part of what we're doing here, and I know how busy your schedule is, and I know how much your time is worth. So to slot us in, much appreciated, mate. Truly.
It's been fun. Thanks for having me.
It's awesome. So, lads, we'll close it off there. So, gentlemen, thanks for joining us here at the Men's Collective podcast. We're the Average Joes. Like I say every week, more than importantly, get along to your Average Joes meet up this week. If you need to know where they are, jump on the website or jump on Facebook, find all the locations, the times. Come and see us, but get along to your AJ's meetup. And, lads, thanks again once for joining us. And once again, been great. Chrisso and Jamie and Mike over there. And things. Excellent, guys. Johnny, enjoy your week.